Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the D-Shift podcast. And I think this is the perfect time of year to start talking about transitions and women and being successful and how that can all come together in very positive ways. But there's also, when we go through life transitions, there's the potential of getting stuck. I know I've been stuck a couple of times in my life and needed a kick in the rear to get going again. And a kick in the rear can be many different things. Sometimes it's sometimes it's something that happens in your life, and sometimes it's reaching out to a coach that specializes in this kind of work, helping women get unstuck when they're in these kind of situations. So I want to introduce you to Michele Garrett. She is a women's life and transition coach. She's a leadership mentor, and she's a learning strategist with over 30 years experience in guiding individuals through personal and professional growth. She has her own company, Michele Garrett Coaching LLC, where she really focuses on heart-centered coaching along with practical tools to help women move forward and create the life that they really want to lead. And I am so excited to have Michele here because, like I said, I think it's a perfect time of year for us all to take a look at this. So, Michele, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Mardi.
Well, you're welcome. And it's like I say, I think that there are so many good things to talk about in this area because we cannot hear enough about what we need to do to, when we hit these little roadblocks and obstacles in life, how do we move past them so they don't become overwhelming for us? Michele, I'm sure this is not what you planned to be when you were a little girl. And you thought, boy, I really like to be, a women's empowerment coach or a women's life and transition coach. Tell me a little bit about what got you here and why this is your area of passion.
Great question. So I would say that my entire career, life in a sense, has been around this umbrella of helping people learn and grow, if you will. I was a middle school teacher for 13 years. I was a preschool teacher for a few years. I was a trainer. I designed training programs. I was an instructional designer. I managed people's professional development, professional growth. And then I moved into coaching. And the difference for me was when you're a teacher or you're a trainer or you're a manager, you're the expert. I was up in the front, the sage on the stage. When you're a coach, the client is the expert. So it was such a beautiful other tool in my tool belt, another skill set for me to help people really become the best version of themselves. Working with women, I'm a woman and I can relate to some of the things that women go through, particularly in that later third act of life. There's so much that happens to us, and I just wanted to be a part of supporting that and helping people through that.
Yeah, and that shines through. And it's funny, when we had talked, Michele and I have talked before, and our backgrounds are so similar. It's so weird, education, curriculum, and instruction was my master's. I also worked in all different school levels. And so it's really interesting how you meet people in the world and they're just like, wow, we have so much in common. It's almost overwhelming sometimes. So Michele, I think one thing that you hit on that I really want to reinforce, because I hear this all the time, and we were talking before we started recording about this whole, what makes a good coach? So I really want to highlight what Michele said. What she said is, a coach is somebody who works with you to create change. So I'm just saying this, if your coach is telling you what to do, or your coach is doing it for you, you don't have a coach. You have a mentor, you have a consultant, you have somebody else. But a good coach asks questions, holds up a mirror, holds space, encourages you to think about different options, and then you make the choice which way you're going to go. And go ahead, Michele.
No, I was going to say on that, I always say to people, I'm here to disrupt your thinking. Because if you continue to think what you've always thought, well, obviously you will have the same results. So it's up to me to hear and to ask you questions that disrupt that. So you go like, Oh, right. Okay. That's my perfect reaction when I ask a question like, oh, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Or it really, then you know that the change is happening in the brain because you're rewiring just a teeny bit.
Right. And I think that's so important because this is where I see people get stuck in any kind of decisions they have to make, whether it's post-divorce life or whether it's should I get a divorce or whether it's what do I want to do next? Like I've already been
Mhm.
successful. Now I feel like, what am I going to do next? And I
Mhm.
work with a lot of women who are in that spot. I'm guessing that might be kind of your client group as well, that are sort of feeling like, well, I've kind of climbed all the mountains I thought I needed to climb, and now I don't know what to do.
No, exactly, right? I mean, I have two sons. I have a wonderful husband. Men are wonderful as well. But women, we're a different category in a lot of ways in that we are the nurturers. We are the ones that take care of everyone. And when you get to that 40-ish, which is where a lot of this happens, you have divorces, you have illnesses, you have children that you've been taking care of for their 18 years, they're going off to school. You've got parents that are aging, and this, you've got a career that maybe you did all these years, and now you're like, it was great because it was a good paycheck, but is it my passion? Do I want to do something different now that I can a little bit? So it's really almost this perfect mesh of things that happen around this time that really enable women, if anything, when they
Right.
take that opportunity to say, okay, I'm still going to be a wonderful mom, still going to be a good wife, I'm still going to be a good employee, a good daughter, but now I can focus on myself a little bit more because I don't have to do everything for everyone anymore, at
Right.
least not as much. And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful time to circle back to yourself. And I see that with all the women I work with.
And I think that, I think this is very true in many cases. And maybe not 40s, but particularly 50s and 60s, I'm seeing
Yeah.
this more where, the women are maybe the moneyed spouse in the family.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they're the higher income earner. They,
Mm-hmm.
if a divorce, and not obviously not all cases are divorce, but especially if there is a divorce, she may have kind of money, means, and opportunity to do a whole bunch of things,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like it doesn't
What do I
feel.
do?
Well, yeah, well, sometimes it's what do I do, and sometimes it's almost like guilt over all of a sudden having all this freedom and money and the ability to travel across the world, or
Mhm.
go spend a month in Costa Rica or something. And it's almost like
Mhm.
women sort of feel guilty that they now have this freedom and opportunity.
Right. Well, I think I hear two things in there. One, I think that I've heard with a lot of women is that if they're excited that they have this free time, or they're excited that they can do whatever they want, or they're excited that their kids are not home anymore, that makes them a bad mother.
Right.
Right? That's the one thing I hear a little bit. And just reframing that and realizing that you can have a win-win. You can still be a great mother and also take care of yourself. But for so many years as mothers, oftentimes as mothers, we're really conditioned to just be giving, 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 and not really asking. So making that shift is a little bit challenging.
Right.
But the other thing that I hear with that, Marty, is that sometimes women just don't know what to do
Yeah.
now that they have this time. I think about the times, and I don't know if this will resonate with anybody else, but when you have children and all of a sudden you have that first day where no one's home, or you have 2 hours where so and so isn't going to be dropped off from the play date for 2 more hours, and you sit in your house and what should I do? Should I
Right.
do a load of laundry? Should I read a book? Right? It's almost we're not used to having that time. So I think that's a little bit of what happens with women too. So being able to really clearly start to think, and this is what I do with women, clearly think about what are your top five, 3 to 5 values or principles of I need this every day or every week to really feel like like myself, like feel good in my day. And really identifying what those are is really important. One of mine is fun, my values. So if a week or two goes by and I'm feeling a little bit off, I'll sometimes I have my little card on my desk and I'll go, oh, of course, Michelle, you really haven't had any fun for like 2 weeks. You haven't laughed. You haven't gotten let loose. Of course, you're feeling a little bit off. So that really helps. And even just visioning out and thinking to myself, what do I see myself out in a year from now? Where would I like to be? Who do I want to be around? What do I want to feel like?
Right.
Who's around me? What am I doing? What value am I providing? Sometimes we don't ask ourselves those questions. So just taking the time for that is really important. And then you just back it up. If this is where I want to be in a year, well, what can I do today?
Right.
And having a little plan will sometimes help with women at that point where they feel that kind of guilt or not knowing. But once you start to tie it to your values and what you really want for yourself, I do see the guilt sort of disappear.
Oh yeah, and I'm right with you on the value stuff. And I do
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of life we run on autopilot. Like we're just going through life, we're just putting one foot in front of the other and we're just getting the things, you know, let's face it, today, I mean, if you're not running your kids around to 15 different things, if you're not working, if you're not keeping an immaculate home, if you're not cooking the
Mm-hmm.
meals, if you're not, volunteering for the PTA and helping out in the community, like there's something wrong with you. And
Yeah,
people,
a lot of pressure.
yeah, and that is
Mm-hmm.
not the truth. And then,
Mm-hmm.
you just get so that you don't ever take anything off your plate. You just keep adding more and
Right.
more. And
It's a
so,
lot of the shoulds, a lot of the
yeah,
shoulds, I call them, right? I should be doing this. And also I think not being able to be alone. I think there's such a value. We've been, as women, have been so much around the kids, the family, everything. Like you said, the PTA, we're always out and about. Having a moment to just sort of be with yourself
right.
and just be content with that and really go, I'm my best friend. I'm with me all the time. So who else is better than me to pump me up, to feel good, to do all of that?
Yeah. And increasingly, I think people are uncomfortable with being alone. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
see and I'm imposing my definition. You don't have to agree with this, but I see there's a whole big difference between being lonely and
Mm,
being alone, because you can be
yes.
alone and be very happy and go out and socialize, but come back and just, live as a single if you want to. You don't have to be in a couple. But then I see other people who, especially women, but men as well, who are absolutely terrified of that coming home to that empty space. Like
Yeah. Oh,
it's like it's some kind of a punishment rather than an opportunity. Do you see that as
yeah.
well?
I do. I mean, if I had, $1 for every time I hear somebody say, gosh, I could never go out to dinner by myself, what would I do? I
Right.
go, I don't eat. You know? But I think that I think that, years ago in college, I read a book. It was Eric Fromm, I think, a psychologist. It was one of my psychology courses called The Art of Loving. And I don't remember anything else from that book. But what I do remember is somewhere in there, and I'm just paraphrasing, he said, you can't quite possibly share yourself with someone else if you don't know yourself first. Like you need to know who you are and love yourself so that you can tell somebody, this is what I need, this is what I love. And I think that that's a piece that we're missing a lot, especially in this world that we're in right now of a lot of social media and the outward stuff. The quiet, the just being, happy in your skin
Yeah.
is has gotten a little bit lost. And I think that really digging in and deciding what makes you happy and doing it and not no excuses, no feeling bad about it, no guilt, just doing that and saying no to people
Right.
because you want to spend some time. But I think we don't give ourselves that time because the world is just coming at us in all directions in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
And I think, again, you've touched on a great point there. is being able to say no to people. And
Mm.
I tell everybody I work with, no is a complete sentence. You don't have to
Yeah.
explain why it's
Hmm.
no. And that means I'm going to say it. And this may sound harsh, but that means to your adult children, that means
Hmm.
to, your family members, that means to even some of
Your
your
parents.
friends. Yeah. Your
Hmm.
parents.
Hmm.
It's interesting. I was talking to a lady, not a client of mine. She was at the grocery store. And of course, I have to talk to everybody. So I was talking to her, and she was telling me that she said she was, I think, 68. And she told me that she can count on one hand the number of times she has ever been alone overnight anywhere, like in her whole
Wow.
life. And she's 68. And because she went right from her parents' home, she married. This was obviously, she
Hmm.
married like 40 plus years ago. She went right
Hmm.
from her parents' home directly to her new partner's home,
Hmm.
her spouse's home. Then she had children. Now her parents are living with her. And
Hmm.
not only her parents are living with her, but her adult kids, and they have kids. So the adult kids and the grandkids and her parents and her husband. And she's just, there's just this chaos around her all the time. And can you imagine at 68 to say,
Hmm.
I can maybe remember being on my own five days
Wow.
in my whole life?
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I am one that loves my kind of quiet time, even when mine is my mornings and reading and having my cup of coffee. And even when my kids were little and they would get up, they would get up so early. I would purposely set my alarm for what I thought would be about at least a half hour, 45 minutes until just so I had that little quiet time. So the idea of all that chaos seems crazy, but people do relish it, and that's important too, to recognize what you love, what fills you up. But there's a difference between what fills you up for more of a purpose or a values reason, and what fills your time more of a fear reason. Right? There's
Absolutely.
those two
Yeah.
differences.
Yeah, and that's where those values come in. Like, are you
Mhm.
spending quality time, or are you a hostage in your house
Right,
serving
right.
serving everybody else? Now, obviously, when you have little kids, this is a completely different ballgame.
Of
But when
course.
you're talking about adult children, they need to kind of launch, right? They need
Hmm.
to get
Yeah.
out of there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, part of my program that I do, one of the most beneficial for those mothers that their kids are just at that 20-ish, 25 to 30 age, and they quite haven't figured out. We talk a lot about the language they use
Right.
with those adults. You should do this, or I would, as opposed, like, that's what they use, and really switching that kind of, so that they are on their own.
Right.
And you're not telling them, because that's what ends up happening, is then they keep coming to you for everything, and
Right.
then you don't have that time for
Right.
your.
So, what are some of the big changes or shifts that you see your clients make, Michele, when when they actually do this work? It's introspective
Hmm.
work. So, when they
Hmm.
get doing this, what are some of the shifts that you hear people saying, women say they experience?
I mean, I know it sounds like the words people use often, but they're the chatter quiets in their brain, right? That noise, that constant talking, because what they realize is that they're putting all those words in there, right? Whatever they're thinking. So they also have a choice to not.
Right.
And they're quieting because they're deciding what's important to them, what their direction is, and they're making choices that way. And they're not making choices all over and scattered. Because I find a lot of women come to me, and the first few sessions, it's very scattered.
Right.
They're pulling in from everywhere. And then all of a sudden, around the fourth, fifth session, I see it's almost like this quiet and this peace comes in with them. Their relationship, I know one client I had, her relationship with her children completely changed, because she really, and I'll use the example, she was going, and they were 25 to 30. They were going away on vacation. She was taking them on vacation. She assigned them each. She was worrying about whether or not she could make dinner all these nights. And we talked about it, or she talked about it. What else could you do? I guess I could assign them. And she assigned them days and now it's shifted every single other interaction with them. She doesn't feel like she has to drop and do everything. And it's shifted to in a relationship where they're not mom and child, but now they're kind of,
Yeah.
together as friends, whatever that might mean as parents. I see people transitioning the changes that they're making with themselves into work and their relationships at work. I often say to people, how you show up in one place is how you show up in all places, right?
Yes.
If you make a change over here, whether it's with your kids' relationship, you're going to change it when you go to work too. So I see that as well. And I see like just a renewed, the only word that keeps popping up is an energy.
Yeah.
A renewed energy that like they may not know the answer of where exactly everything that they're doing are going. Like they may not know what they're going to do when they retire, but they're so excited because now they're clear on the road they're taking. They
Yeah.
clear on what's important to them. And I just see that kind of calmness in them, facially, everything, just this kind of calm that happens.
And
So,
that's the important thing, right? It doesn't, it's great to have a goal. It's great to have a vision. It's great to be working towards it, but you don't have to lock it in. And that's where, you don't have to commit to it and say, okay, I'm 50 or I'm 60 and this is where I want to be when I'm 70. And if I don't get there, then I failed. That's not the purpose. And I think so many times I hear people talk about locking in and setting and doing. And it's like, if you don't make it, then somehow you failed. And I love your approach to just get clarity around it. And then be open to being flexible, because when you are clear on what your values are and where kind of the big picture, then you can deal with the details as they come up and move through
it's about what's important to you, right? When you start to know yourself and know what's important and really love yourself, then choices become easier.
Yeah.
Because I always say to people, it's like the headlights on a car in a dark night. You don't really know, you can't see the end destination yet, but you can see A to B.
Right.
So you make that choice. And then when you get to B, you go, oh, look at that. I could go this way or I can go this way, right? You just keep moving and taking the next headlight space, so to speak, and just trust that because you know your values, because you know yourself, your next choice will be the best next choice for you.
Yeah.
And it will get you in the direction you want to go. But you need to clear all that out. You need to clear all the mental chatter, all the shoulds, the patterns that you've had and the beliefs for all those years, and really kind of slough it off, draw a line in the sand and be like, okay, now what do I want? Well, now what do I want? I don't have to do all of this behind me anymore.
Yes, I love that idea of just clearing out the crap and leaving that nice, clear space where you can then think through what you want to do. And I love the idea that you're not, you're getting rid of those limiting beliefs and those like those old programs that are running in your head. It's like if you were running a first generation Mac computer today, it's not going to work. And if you're running those old programs.
I always say, like, it's like Spotify. When you don't like a song, you're like, change song, next, right? You don't like those words that are in your brain you put them there. Nobody else put them there. So change the song.
Yeah.
Go to the next one that's better, that's positive, that's reminding you how wonderful you are, how beautiful you are, and that you're making the best choice for you.
Yeah. And it takes work to do that. And that's where a coach like Michele can be such a benefit to you, because you can't think your way out of a problem you got yourself into, because if you could have, you wouldn't have gotten that problem in the first place. So it's not your fault if you're feeling stuck, but it is your choice to either stay there or move forward, backwards, sideways, whichever way, but you got to move to make a change. So Michele, we have covered a ton of information. What do you think is sort of the big takeaway you'd like women to remember when they go on about their busy days today?
I mean, honestly, I think I just sort of said it. just love yourself. The reason I love working with women is we're so strong, we're so powerful, but we also can limit ourselves, and just love yourself for all you are. Move forward knowing that you're doing the best. And my tagline is blossom into your best. And that's it, right? Your best, not somebody else's best, but blossom into what is your best person that you want to be. And you can never go wrong with that.
Exactly. And you choose what your best what your best
Exactly.
blossom, what your best flower is. And you have
Exactly.
something that you're offering everybody that's listening that's an incredibly generous gift. Can you just share a little bit about what that is, Michele?
Sure. So I have a complimentary strategy call. And it really, in and of itself, it is a clarity call. So we talk about what's your vision out a year from now? What obstacles are getting in your way? Because sometimes we don't think about them. And then really the most important key is, what's the impact of you not hitting that vision?
Right.
So it really is a great opportunity to just talk through some of these things that, again, are usually sitting up here, and we always haven't had time to either write them down or say them out loud, and have a conversation and get a little more clarity about what you want your next best step to be for
Yes.
you.
Yeah. And I'm going to make sure all that information is in the show notes. In the meantime, Michele, if people want to reach out and get a hold of you, what is the best way to do that?
Well, my website is mgarrettcoaching.com. It's GARRETT. And that's the best way. There's information there about me, about my program that I just trademarked, the program. And different ways to get in touch with me, or to just get in touch with me, or to actually set up the strategy call. Both of those are available on the website. That's the best way.
Michele, thank you for sharing this wisdom and having this conversation. Like it's for some women, they haven't really thought about what this is, this kind of feeling they've got. And I think you really shed a light on what women may be experiencing, and also given some ideas for how to start moving forward if you're in these places. So thank you so much for sharing everything.
And thank you for having me on this. You do such amazing work as well to help women through difficult transitions as well. So your work is invaluable too.
Well, thank you, Michele. And as always, it was a pleasure to talk to you. And I want to thank everybody for listening in to this episode of The D Shift. And don't forget to tune in to the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.